So many of you know that I go to Seeking Alpha from time to time to read the varied, and I do like how many free opinions there are out there for various financial markets. And obviously, I like technology and energy stocks the most, as many of you know. Quan Chen Ma here, I've read a few times. I wouldn't say I really listen to anyone on here, but at least they get me thinking. And he's got me thinking before. And I'm not picking on him, nor am I giving financial advice, people, but I got to use him as an example because I don't get where this is coming from, this idea of, I guess I'll say, how should I put it? I don't get this insistence some people seem to have that they're smart for pointing out that Intel's bigger than AMD. Honestly, that's what I think this is about. To summarize his article, though, getting a little ahead of myself, he basically says, yeah, Intel lost the Zen 2 battle, but it's going to win the war, and it's going to win the war because it's a bigger company with more money, more capacity, more capabilities, and since they are so big and established, since they have their capacity full and they're selling like gangbusters right now, slight losses compared, relatively speaking for them, these are big gains for AMD, but slight losses in market share for Intel don't affect them that much. It's more about the revenue, and because of that, Intel's undervalued. They're at full capacity. You should buy them now and not buy AMD. I don't really want to make this about whether you should or shouldn't buy AMD. That's not the focus of this. I want to focus on why someone would even why would you I don't get it. Why would you insist on buying Intel now? Just because they're bigger, just because they're not doomed, and AMD would be easier, though nowhere near anymore, going out of business. Just because they're not doomed doesn't mean they're a good buy. And I left a comment here, and I will also explain my opinion a bit further. And so here's the thing. Here's what I said in my comment on Seeking Alpha. There's two questions Intel bulls need to ask themselves. One, am I willing to wait 3 to 5 years for Intel to win this war? And two, why am I so sure Intel can throw money at their problems faster than AMD and, frankly, ARM can innovate in the same amount of time? Right? I understand Intel has a ton of money, but companies aren't created to burn money in into a pit to save themselves. That's not what you're looking for when you buy a stock. And I feel like that's the argument. People would not say it that way. I obviously said it in a more negative way, but that seems to be what one big opinion I keep hearing is Intel has all this money, they're going to come back and swing hard. Right? But AMD now has some money, and more than they've had for a decade. And look what they managed to do with almost no money. Do you not think AMD is going to innovate? And even if you think Intel can spend their way out of this in 3 to 5 years, why are you willing to park your money for 3 to 5 years? I don't get it, right? Right? Like, why? I'm not saying, frankly, I don't know if any of these companies can win the war. I don't see either of them going out of business within a decade or 2 decades. We'll see, so it depends who's winning the war on the year, right? AMD was winning before, then Intel, then AMD, then Intel. Right now, AMD seems to be doing well. But Intel's not winning right now. They're losing market share. They have security vulnerabilities popping up every 10 seconds. And even if they swing back hard in 3 years, so why not buy their stock in 2 years? I don't get it. I don't get why. And I'm not telling you to buy AMD stock. I'm just bringing up a point. Why buy Intel now? Why buy Intel before Zen 3's launch? Why buy Intel before Zen 4's launch? Why? We know Intel is stuck on 14 nanometer for most of their high performance products till 2021 at the earliest. And I'm skeptical anything's coming out besides quad cores on 10 nanometer. Well, maybe forever. So why take on that risk? Especially when, we know their roadmap is a 10 core that still has only PCIe 3.0 coming out in 2020 against AMD's Zen 3. AMD's Zen 3 is design complete. Another rumor just came out showing that they are launching it next year, possibly around RDNA 2.0. This is something I've covered on my channel a dozen times at least, that Zen 3 is coming within a year. It is. And I said that half a year ago. Zen 3 is coming within a year. It might not come to consumers right away, but you can bet they're going to get that to server as soon as possible. And let's say it's late next year. We know Intel will have no answer again for that. Nothing besides lowering prices. And in fact, that article says it's their revenue that's important. Well, they're going to lose revenue. The only way to keep market share will be to lower prices. Except, based on people I've talked to in the server industry, it could be free, and they want AMD now because of how bad the security problems are. So again, I'm not saying Intel's doomed. I'm not saying to buy AMD. That's a whole other discussion. But why buy Intel now? You're not smart because you point out a number is bigger than another number. Anyone can see 10's bigger than 1. I know Intel's 10 times bigger than AMD. But I also know that the way making money in the stock market works is you want the share price to go up of what you purchased. Just because it's bigger than AMD doesn't mean you won if it lost half its value. Again, not saying it will, and this is not financial advice. But yeah, to really conclude what I'm saying here, to put it succinctly, what I would say is I really don't understand why you would take on this risk now when there's very realistic chance that Intel's price will bottom after Zen 3, not before. Intel's not doomed, but only a blind person would think their recent developments are better than the previous developments. It seems to be getting worse. Yeah, I know you're trying, Intel's on sale to a certain extent for how much revenue they have, and you want to catch a falling knife. But are you so sure it's done falling? I know it's always darkest before the dawn, but it's also darkest before it even gets darker. You never know when that dawn's necessarily coming. Again, I'm not telling you to buy or not buy. I'm just trying to throw some opinions out there about this argument that Intel will outspend AMD, and so you should buy Intel. I mean, they might. It's not going to be this year, though. It might not be next year. Wait for that knife to hit the ground. That would be my advice. Although it's not financial advice, it's entertainment advice. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. I just thought I'd throw this together for some of the more professional crowd that listen to me. And I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this. Like, subscribe, share it, support me on Patreon. Of course, there's all these different tiers where you can talk with me and more in depth about my opinions there. And yeah, thank you for listening.